Welcome back to Grim Reality Locks. I am the mysterious Namet. Fury is a specific kind of silence that only exists at 3 It is not dies the absence of noise, it is a physical weight, a pressure that builds up in yours when the rest of the world has gone dormant. For those of us who work the graveyard shift, the dimsumness is a coworker we never asked for. We tell ourselves that the shadows in the corner are just tricks of the light, or that the creaking floorboards are just the building selling in the cold. But deep down, in the lizard brain that remembers when we were pride, we know better. Sometimes, when you stare into the dark long eno, something stares back. If you want to support the channel and keep these locks open, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. It goes a long way. Now, let us clock in. The following story was sent in by a subscriber from Northern Michigan. I took the job because my bank account was hovering at $40 and my brain was due in 3 days. The listing was vague as beer deep on the third page of a job Bolton had never heard of the fours. It's simply red security officer needed for the commission, logistics facility. Immediate start. Cash pay weekly. No experience required. In hindsight, the phrase cash pay weekly should have been the first red flag. Legitimate security firms I not usually operate like shitty mechanics, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I called a number, a guy with a voice like gravel over December of the Me Too soap at 10p method 10p methanine. And just like the facility was located about 20 miles out of Traverse City, deep in the sticks where the trees grow thick and the cells of the skulls do die. It was the dead of January. The snow was piled 4 feet high on the sides of the road and the temperature was sitting at dividing 5 degrees below zero. I pulled my beat-up seat and Emma to the light at 95 feet met. The place was massive. It was called the Great Lakes Distribution Center, or at least that is what the faded peeling sign said. It looked like a running wild carcass beach in the white snow. The main building was a colossal metal box spanning maybe 4 football fields, surrounded by a chain link fence topped with razor wire. There was not a single other car in the lot. Just one flickering street of buzzing, loudly overhead orange, sickly glow on the SAR. I walked up to the guard shack at the front gate. It was a small, prefabricated fiberglass box, barely big enough for a desk and a chair. I knocked on the glass. Noting, I tried the handle and it opened with a stiff creak. Inside, it smelled like stale coffee and old cigarettes. There was pedal hitter humming in the corner, fighting a losing battle against the Michigan. On the desk, there was a set of keys, a heavy flashlight, and a walkie-talkie that looked like it was from the 1990s. There was no training officer, no purlane, sir. Just a sticky note on the monitor. The test said lock rounds every 2 hours. Watch the cameras. Do not leave the booth unless necessary. I sat down, the chief office chair groaning under my weight. I figured this was going to be the easiest money I had ever made. I would sit here, watch Netflix on my phone if the signal held up, and collect my cash. The first hour was uneventful. The wine howled, rattling the plexiglass windows of the booth, but inside it was reluctantly cozy. I spent the time familiarizing myself with the camera system. There were 16 cameras total, cycling through views of the warehouse interior. It was depressing to look at. Just row after row off a row of empty orange shelving units, stretching back into darkness. The floor was polished concrete, stained with oil and dust. Camera 1 showed the loading docks. Camera 2 showed the main entrance. Camera 3 showed the administrative offices. And then there was camera 4. Camera 4 was positioned in the deep storage sector, way in the back of the warehouse. Unlike the others, the feed on camera 4 was slightly grainy. Every few seconds, a line of static would roll up the screen, distancing the image. It showed a wide intersection of isles, pitch black except for the infrared night vision of the camera, which turned everything. Around 11:15 p.m., it got bored. I started rummaging through the desk drawers, looking for a pen to write down my arrival time in the logbook. The top drawer was full of trash candy wrappers, broken rubber bands, and a few rusty paper clips. I pulled the drawer all the way out to check the back, and that is when I found it. It was a piece of lined noble paper, folded elbows tie square and taped to the underside of the drawer. It looks like it had been there for a while. The tape was yellow and brittle. Bruce, I peeled it off and unfolded it. The handwriting was frantic, scrawled in blue ink that had pressed hard enough to work the paper. It was a list. At the top, written in all caps, it said protocol for the night shift. Read this. I chuckled. I thought maybe the previous guard was messing with the new guy. I started reading. Rule number 1, keep the heater on loud. If it gets too hot in the booth, the windows fog up. You need to see out, but more importantly, you do not want them to see you squinting. Rule number 2, patrols are to be done at midnight and 4 a.m. only. Do not go into the warehouse any of the time. If you hear heavy machinery running between the times, do not investigate. It is just the pipes. It is always just the biffs. Rule number 3, if you see a red fox near the gate, turn off the outside flash until at least it is not a fox. Rule number 4 is do not look at the monitor for camera phone between the hours of 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. The feet loops during this hour. Watching the loop cause nausea and hallucinations. Just turn the monitor brightness down or look away. Rule number 5, if the phone in the booth rings, answer it immediately. Do not speak first. Listen. If there is static, hang up. If there is a voice, know exactly what it says. I read the list twice. It felt like a big creepypasta, the kind of stuff I used to read on Reddit when I was a teenager. I crumpled the paper up and tossed it in until the trash can next to my feet. Nice try, I said out loud, my voice sounding flat in the small booth. I checked my watch. It was 11:55 p.m. According to the official instructions, the sticky note on the Mononori had to lock around every 2 hours. That meant my first patrol was due in 5 minutes. I grabbed the heavy Max lifeline and the keys. I zipped up my parka, dreading the walk from the head booth to the main building. I stepped out into the cold. The wind hit me like a physical slap. The snow crunched loudly under my boots, a sharp, rhythmic sound that echoed off the metal siding of the warehouse. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I unlocked the cyber-signal door and stepped inside the warehouse. The silence in there was different. Outside, the wine provided a backdrop of noise. Inside, it was dead. The air was stale and freezing, smelling of dust and ozone. It was pitch black, darker than any darkness I had ever seen. I clicked in my flashlight. Beam cut through the dark, eliminating dust moles stinging the air. I swept the light across the rows of empty shelves. He looked like the reps of some giant dead beast. I walked the perimeter just like I was supposed to. My footsteps echoed, sounding like they were coming from 3 different directions at once. I kept checking over my shoulder, a habit born from being alone in the space the Vic. I was halfway down the main aisle when I stopped it. The air temperature chopped. I don't know, it got a little chilly. I made it plummeted instantly. Yeah. I could feel the hairs in my nose freezing. My breath blew in front of me in thick, heavy clouds. And then, I heard it from deep within the warehouse towards the back where the diff storage sector was, came the sound of metal grinding on metal. It was a screeching, rhythmic noise, like a rustic conveyor bell screeching back to life. Creech, click, screech, clump. I froze. The facility had been shut down for 2 years. The hair was no power running to the machinery. I had checked the breaker panel in the guard track the wireless maids were killed. I remembered the list in the trash can. Really, number 2, if you hear heavy machinery running, do not investigate. Hello. I called out. Me voice cracked. Security. Is anyone in here? The grinding noise stopped instantly. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before. I stood there for a solid minute, my heart hammering against my ribs. I swept the flashlight beam back and forth frantically. Nothing but empty shelves and concrete. Raise, I whispered to myself. Just rest for the wind. I finished the page roll at a brisk walk, almost a jog, and locked the door behind me with shaking hands. When I got back to the booth, I dove inside and locked the door too. I sat down, breathing hard. I looked at the clock. 12:20 a met. I looked at the trash can. Slowly, I reached it down, fished out the crumpled roll of paper, and smoothed it out on the desk. I read through number 2 again. It is just the pips. It is always just the pipe. I tried to convince myself that is all it was. Old buildings make noise. Metal contracts in the cold. It was physics, not ghost. I settled back into the chair, keeping my eyes glued to the monitors. Everything looked normal. Camera on, empty. Camera 12, snow blowing across the lot. Camera 3, dark offices. Camera 4. I squinted at the screen. The static was worse now. The green night vision pulsed rhythmically. And then, he saw something that made my blood run cold. On camera 4 in the middle of the aisle, he had just walked past one of the righteous shoving in his waist. Moving. It wasn't falling over. It was sliding across the concrete floor, slowly, smoothly, as if being pushed by an invisible hand. It slid 3 feet to the left, blocking the aisle. I rubbed my eyes. I must be tired. I blinked and looked. I licked aim. The shelf was stationary now, but it was definitely in a different spot than 10 minutes ago. I grabbed the logbook to write it down, but my hand hovered over the paper. How you locked it? Self-moved by itself. I decided to ignore it. I turned up the heater, ignoring rule number 1 because the chill from the warehouse had soaked into my palms. Time crawled. When the mid came and went, the wine outside picked up, howling around the corners of the booth. At 1:55, I realized I was approaching the Zinger zone mentioned in the note. Rule number 4 is to not look at the monitor for camera for between 2 and 3 minutes. I am a rational person. I do not believe in curse or accountabilities. But after the noise in the warehouse and the moving shelf, I was feeling less skeptical. Still, curiosity is a dangerous thing. To a map hit. The digital clock on the wall flickered. I tell myself it would not look. I stared at the parking lot outside. I checked my funny nose service. Tax, like I spun a Panama in my fingers, but my eyes kept flickering till the bank of monitor. It is human nature. Tell someone not to push a right button and it becomes the only thing they want to do. At 2:10 met, I glanced in the screen. Just a quick pick. Camera 4 was static chippy. The image was jumping. But through the rain, I could see the ISO. It was empty. I let a breath I didn't know echoing. See? I whispered. Nothing. I looked back down at my phone. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement on the screen. He looked up, standing in the middle of the ISO on camera 4, right where the shelf had moved, was a person. He was standing perfectly still, facing away from the camera ray. We were wearing a thick parka and a security officer's hat. Highway read my uniform